On this edition of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast, he helped orchestrate what could be considered a dynasty in minor league baseball. Former Lethbridge Dodgers manager Gail Henley joins us. Welcome to episode 107 of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. I'm Joe McFarland. September is a big month on our calendar when it comes to on this date events. As the summer winds down, regular seasons come to an end, leaving behind playoffs and championship runs. We've highlighted a number of those on social media, but wanted to throw it back on the podcast to one of the teams that won it all. The Lethbridge Dodgers were a powerhouse in the late 1970s and early 1980s, capturing 3 Pioneer League titles in 1977, 79, and 80. It's no small feat when you consider the high turnover the rookie league sees. Very rarely do you see players spend more than a year with a team before heading up the organizational depth chart. The one common denominator during those 3 seasons was manager Gail Henley. A veteran of the Dodgers scouting staff and serving as their director of minor league development, he arrived in 1977, made way for Jim Lefebvre in 1978, came back in 79 and 80, and returned one more time in 1983. In all, Henley managed Lethbridge to a record of 173 wins and 105 losses over the 4 seasons. Now nearly 92 years old, Henley has been retired for a while now, but he still has many great memories of his time in Alberta. We caught up with him recently to talk about those memories and what he's most proud of when he looks back on his life in baseball. Gail, thanks so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Thank you for letting me be here.
Take us back to 1977. Your assignment is to head up this new Dodgers affiliate in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. What went through your mind?
Well, first of all, it was a new experience for me moving into Canada with a ball club. And I know that Lethbridge the year before had belonged to Montreal, and it was the first year they were in the league, and also it was the first year that the Canadian clubs were all in the Pioneer League, and it was a new experience. And first of all, I had to kind of basically run the whole thing, the camp, and Mr. Schweppe, who was the farm director, had a lot of confidence in me and just give me free rein and let me go at it. So, and I took one of my scouts that I had signed, Dennis Heron, along as a coach.
What was one of maybe the biggest challenges that you faced, given, as you mentioned, it's not just the first year that you're doing this, but it's the first year for the team in Lethbridge and for the team with the Dodgers, and beyond that, it's, you have some new rivalries that are popping up. As you mentioned, you have Calgary and Medicine Hat both entering into the fold as well.
First of all, we wanted to make a good impression on our Canadian friends, which I think we might have. I don't know. But it seemed to be that they appreciated us being there, and Lethbridge was really a nice town, and the players liked being there. There was also there weren't that many disturbances for them to be involved in, so that made it good too for me. So I didn't have to run around at night and be a policeman. So that was good.
I was going to ask about those first impressions when you arrived in the city and in this province. What kind of went through your mind? Because you're a Kansas boy. It's not like Canada is first on your research pages when you're going to school, kind of thing.
Well, in Kansas, I didn't know much about Calgary or Canada or anything else. All I knew was Kansas was flat country, and basically going from Salt Lake to Lethbridge, and going up at 15 and through the border towns. It was kind of a flat country too, so it was nothing new. And the part of Montana I was in, which is Great Falls to start with, because that was our meeting point, we just went north and everywhere, and it was a good experience. It really was. And it was a growing one for me because I got to meet some of my Canadian friends that I became friends with. And also I every now and then when I look back and I think, well, I'm still got a little bit of Canadian touch because and I would always seem like when I come back from there that they all think I was a Canadian.
Had been kind of cool as well. I know in chatting with your son that you were able to bring your family along for the ride as well and kind of enjoy some new experiences that way.
Well, not all the way. My first year, my oldest son came up with me for probably 3 weeks. He was out of school and he was trying to play Legion ball, and he did back in Ogden, Utah, when I was in that club. But mostly my family didn't really get a chance to be with me all at once. They were kind of split. My last year in Lethbridge, about 79 or 80, when my youngest son was able to come up and spend most of the summer with me. And he was a baseball player in high school here. And he worked out with a team and took infield and that sort. Whereas my daughter, she and her mother came up with one time, and that was the only time in the 3 years that they did come up, that they came up together. So I really never had them all there at one time.
Any favorite stories that still make you smile to this day from your days here in Lethbridge and in Canada?
Only when we won the championship and we came back from Billings and the bus came into town and we parked right in front of Reno Litsy's house and everybody was having a couple of beers. Normally, we had a rule that no beer on the bus, but that night we had a couple of beers, and even though some of my kids maybe were 20, 21 years old or 19, but I had a lot of older players that it wasn't their first time around the block, so we enjoyed it, and we celebrated at Reno's house. And it was very interesting, very good.
Now, you were the man behind 3 championships in 4 years, and by any standard of measurements, that's a dynasty, but you had to do it with new rosters every single year. How did you manage to guide that team to glory like you did?
Well, I think you have to give credit to the ball players. I always had good players. Guys going back from Mike Howard first year, shortstop, in 77, and it was 79. I had Greg Brock and Ed Group and Rich Rodas, and I always had good ball players. So I can't say it was all magic on my part. I think it was just the fact that they all came to play, and it's the way it turned out. So I basically that's it. I think I was just good ball players. It always make a manager look better than he is. Because we're all pretty much the same. Most of it's, I think, kind of managed by experience and by percentages and et cetera, et cetera. And it's just a matter of, with me, I thought handling pitching was probably my strong point. From there, I don't know. I can't tell you other than the fact that we had good players, and they like to win. Even when we won 18 or 19 in a row, I wasn't completely aware of it because we were just going out every day doing our job. And here we were. Somebody called me, I think it was in Idaho Falls, and said, "Hey, you guys have won." I came from the L.A. office. Said, "You guys have won 15 or 16 in a row." And I said, "You have?" And I wasn't completely aware of that. So it was just, day in and day out, you do your job.
You mentioned the players, and you look down the list, and some names that are probably pretty familiar to a lot of Major League Baseball fans, whether it be Ron Kittle or Candy Maldonado or Mitch Webster. I mean, there's quite a few really good ball players that went through. Who would you say was maybe the most talented that you saw in your time here?
probably one or two that didn't make it, but I thought Greg Brock had a chance, to be a pretty good home run hitter, which he did. And the one player who got through the system, in fact, he went through the whole Dodger system and went on to be with the White Sox. You probably have his name there, Rob. My short-term memory is not too good, but he hit about 50 home runs for the White Sox. The Dodgers had released him earlier, and he had gone through the system and was missed by all of us. So none of us thought he was a prospect at an early age.
That would have been Ron Kittle.
Ron Kittle, there you go. Ronnie Kittle.
Yeah, he came through with Edmonton actually as well in '81. I want to say as part of their PCL team, the White Sox PCL team, and hit, I think it was 50 home runs and 140 some odd RBIs or something like that. Like he was incredible. But you clearly saw something in him during his time here as well.
Well, when he was with. Of course, he was his first year. He's probably 18 or 19 years old, from Chicago area, and he had trouble catching the ball, and he struck out quite often, and he really didn't get to play. And he was first baseman, if I recall, and he just didn't seem to fit, and consequently, next year. Let's see. That was 81, 82. I was no longer around, but in our system, the Dodger system, he went through Class C and Class B, and nobody seemed to think that he was a prospect, and he just didn't get to play. And young guys like that who eventually mature, they need playing time, and we just failed to recognize his talents. And it wasn't only me; it was all the other managers that he attempted to play for in the early years that declined to put the stamp on him. So that's all I can tell you. Those things happen in all organizations.
When you look back on the time here in Lethbridge, what was the atmosphere like around the stadium when you're constantly winning like your teams were?
Well, it was very good. In fact, I enjoyed Lethbridge. The whole town was very receptive to the players, and they treated us fine. And I have good feelings about having time spent in Lethbridge and in Canada. I remember we used to have some pretty good rivalries with Calgary the first year. I think they had the Cardinals over there, and we were always, and they had a temporary ballpark they had built, and we had some pretty good going on. So I really can't express exactly how I feel, but I know I enjoyed it. And I kept coming back, so I must have done it for a reason other than the fact that each year was a temporary time for me, because originally when I went up there in 1977, Mr. Schweppe, it was an emergency thing, and they were just waiting to hire somebody. And so the next year in 78, Jim Lefevre became available, so he went up and managed 1 year, and all of a sudden he's back coaching in the big leagues. And so in 79, guess what? Mr. Schweppe says, would you mind doing this? And I said, well, okay with me, so go ahead. Here we are.
How proud are you of the accomplishments that team was able to put together in the short time that you were here?
Oh, I was very happy. Just the fact that you win and you win a championship, it's always a happy time, and especially when the season's over with and you can celebrate. So, it makes those bus rides real cheerful, even though they're long, and sometimes the bus will take us on a wrong route, and all of a sudden we wind up eastern Canada, and we should be a little more central. And some of those trips out of Montana into Canada and crossing the borders at night are something else.
I can only imagine. Tell us a little bit more about some of those bus trips, because I've heard from a number of players over the years who've said, it's always an adventure, because whether it's the air conditioning breaking down, if you were lucky enough to have air conditioning, or breakdowns on the side of the road. I mean, there were so many different stories that kind of those road trips were almost more memorable than the time on the field sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I can remember one time I don't know where we were, but the bus broke down, and we had to wait for hours and hours, and had changed tires, and sometimes you had to change a driver, and it was harassing, and you had to have a lot of patience, and you're stuck out at 1 or 2 in the morning on a highway in somewhere in northern Montana, and there's no traffic coming around, and what are you going to do? Go to the side of the road and pitch quarters or something like that. But no, it was a good time for me, and I know it was a good experience for a lot of my ball players.
You had an absolutely amazing and lengthy career in baseball, and I'm curious, what does the game mean to you?
Well, one time I didn't know how long it was going to last, and I when I came home from might have been Lakeland one year, I decided to retire and go to work for the company I'd been working for the previous 5 years. They had offered me a job in management, and I talked to Jim Campbell, who was a general manager of Detroit. We were in Los Angeles at California Angel game, and I told him what I wanted to do, and he said, "Okay, no problem." I was going to go back to scouting, and I wanted to do some scouting for Detroit and go back to college and get my degree. And he says, no problem. It says, you can have that job and do that. And then he offered me a job, the salary in scouting. I said, Jim, I can't afford that. I said, I'm going to go to work for Clean Towel and Uniform Supply for twice the amount of money. I've got a car, I got expense account, I got a secretary, I got all these things. And he says, well, that's what it is. So I said, I'm sorry, I have to take the job. And so I left it for 2 or 3 years, and in 1969 or 70, when I realized that I was not going to be a general manager of one of our 3 companies, which we had one in Seattle, one in Portland, and one in San Francisco, and then the Los Angeles one, where I was working. And so I made up my mind then. All 3 of the companies were operated and by a brother. And our senior one was in Seattle, and then he was the oldest brother, and then the youngest brother was in San Francisco, working for Standard Industrial, and then I was in Los Angeles working for Chip Marriott, and who I really enjoyed working with, and I could see right then, I was in my early 50s, I think, that I was not going to be a general manager at any one of these 3 outlets as long as the brothers were still alive and working on. So that decided my fate. And also the job was very, very, it was a tough job. You had to be on the ball all the time. You got guys like Standard Prudential and Welch's, and these were big clothing outfits at suppliers that you always had to go out and meet a price that they would be undercutting you at a gout that you might have. And so consequently, I was smoking a little bit. And then when I got home at night, I wanted a martini which kind of relaxed. Then I could just see myself in a few more years. I said, I'll be dead trying to, maintain this level of the job. So anyhow, I decided that I was going to do something, get back in baseball if I could. And it so happened that I was playing around not playing around, I was kind of halfway managing a little group of kids of 16 years old that were involved in those leagues. I can't think of the name of it. But anyway, and one of the kids' mother happened to work for Al Campanis with the Dodgers. And she said, I talked to her, and she says, let me talk to Al. Maybe he might have a job for you. And so he contacted me, and I went in, interviewed with Campanis, and he gave me a job scouting. And first of all, he says, do you have any reports of the club that you last managed in the Northern League? And I said, yeah, especially the Dodger club that was in the league. So I gave him, he said, bring in a couple of reports. So I brought him in, and he said, well, it looks like you have an idea what you're doing, so we got a job for you. And so I went to work for the Dodgers, and the rest is history. I worked for them for a number of years, 26 years, and before I retired, and went to San Diego, Texas, and where else did I work? Anyway, I went to work, but that's basically it. And after so many years, I hung them up.
Must have meant a lot to you to have that kind of career in baseball.
It's not many do, but I was very lucky that I was able to survive that long. And I think a lot of it was probably the fact that I cared, and I was always a baseball guy. And other than the fact, that was it. And I liked what I was doing. I must have.
Sounds like it. Gail, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast, and congratulations on all that you accomplished in the game of baseball.
Okay, well, I hope I gave you enough to go on here.
Oh, he sure did, didn't he? Well, thanks again to Gail Henley for joining us on the podcast, and thanks to his son Daniel for helping line up the conversation. He passed along his own fond memories of his time visiting as a youngster, and was even a teammate of Brock and Kittle later on in his own baseball career. Quote, I learned much about the game as a little rugrat running around stadiums in the Pioneer League. Great story all in all. Before we go, make sure to head over to albertadugoutstories.com, as we've been working on a few throwback stories lately. Ian wrote a great one about Marilyn Monroe and Joe DiMaggio heading to the Rocky Mountains. And coming up tomorrow, aka Friday, we'll have a new story dating back a century and a controversial Western Canada League final series. Until next time, thank you for all of your support, no matter the platform of Alberta Dugout Stories.